Beautiful day.
Yeah.
All right, at this point, I'd like to call the Common Council of the City of Plattsburgh, New York, Finance and Community Development committee meeting to order. It is 5:05 p.m. Appreciate your patience. I would like to take a motion to approve the minutes of the April 13th, 2022 Finance and Community Development Committee. Motion by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Bob. Are there any changes, deletions, or alterations? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 2.1, discussion on parks renewal project. This is something that I sent out. I've been discussing this since the state of the city, the need to invest in our parks, a significant investment, not just the repairs that we've been making along the way. Last year, in partnership with the Community Development Office and Department of Public Works, we posted a fairly comprehensive outline of the city parks. We labeled each one with the amenities provided, the state that each park was in, and published that document. Was well received, but at the same time, people understood that our parks need help. Following that, Matt's office with some of Andrew's folks and the folks in DPW did a comprehensive park by park outline of deficiencies. That document was provided to council. It's also something that we've been tracking throughout the year in terms of improvements in the parks and the need to improve the parks. That also was outlined in the memo that I provided. Based on these conversations that we've had with counselors and community members, the proposal on the table is a $1.5 million investment into our parks. Two phases, two primary phases. The first phase is this year, spending about $500,000 to improve and to continue the improvement of that list, as well as hiring a third-party agency to help do some major renovations of our central parks, 5 of our central parks, the Oval, Blumet, Melissa Penfield, South Acres, and South Butler. So 5 of the parks that are majorly used in the city. That opportunity lends itself to really taking a look at how those parks can be used. A lot of community engagement, which overlaps the work that Courtney is currently doing with a number of public events that just so happened, by the way, to kind of line up nicely. And then having that kind of study be a roadmap for how to develop those parks in the future. With that being said, funding, we've talked about a number of funding paths. We've yet to use ARPA funds for any major projects, and I'd like to start to use that money, especially for long-term permanent investments like this. That being said, there are 2 items on tonight's agenda. One is the creation of a capital project, and the other one is the approval of the consulting agreement with Barton & Legibus. So moving on to, I'm hoping that everybody read that. Okay, good. Draft resolution authorizing capital project H5110.88. 2022 parks maintenance and upgrades. Motion by Councilor Bob, second by Councilor Canales. Discussion.
Yeah, I got the agenda last night at 4:30 and I didn't have a chance to get through everything, but I do have some questions. So the resolution says $1,500,000 from general fund to be refunded through issuance of serial bonds or ban or ARPA. Is the plan to take a mixture of money from those 3 sources? And if so, what is the plan in that way? How much money do we have in ARPA right now?
$1 million in ARPA right now. This year, that we received last year, and we'll receive another 1 million this year.
So we have $1 million from last year that we haven't used. So what's going to be the spread between the funds? Do you know? Or?
Right now, as proposed in the memo that I sent, that we use $500,000 immediately out of ARPA which covers a significant amount of parking improvement as well as the proposed study and draft plans, or the plans that would be developed for those 5 major parks. Moving into next year, figuring out what's the more logical way to fund some of these long-term improvements. If it's a 20-year improvement, we'd certainly prefer to use a bonded solution for something like that. If it's a short-term solution or a shorter-term solution, we'll pay for it out of general fund balance, or ARPA funds.
So the upgrades that you're discussing, I think it says equipment. I think that's where did I read that?
City Parks new equipment, $100,000.
Yes, right. Okay, so new equipment. And then the parks maintenance and upgrade that you're increasing that by 1,400,000. Is that going to be, and I didn't get through everything, but is that going to be the highlighted yellow components of that report? How
No,
is it?
that report that you said that was highlighted, some was highlighted yellow, some wasn't. That is the comprehensive outline that was provided through Matt's office on the current deficiencies in the parks right now.
Okay,
Those are all the things that are broken, all the things that need to be mended, those are the day-to-day, essentially the deferred, a lot of it's been deferred maintenance that we've seen over the last, however long, that needs to get fixed, that hasn't been fixed. So some of those highlighted ones are the ones that have been fixed already. The ones that aren't highlighted are the ones that need to get fixed. Right, that's how you.
So the way that the highlighted items were tasks which either required specific council approval just because of the amount that it's going to cost to address the issue, or if they required specific coordination with other offices. A few of the more minor tasks were those that weren't highlighted. The ones that were highlighted are the more complex among them.
Thanks for clarifying, because there's also a spreadsheet that corresponds with that work that shows whether it's been complete or not complete, and that spreadsheet gets filled out along the way.
That was shared too.
Yes.
I noticed on that list, the pavilion gazebo at Melissa Penfield Park, that was highlighted. So I remember I talked to you about that. So that is something that would take more consultation with somebody else to fix.
Yep, either interdepartmental or some type of another group of people or something like that. I know that the gazebo down here at the Samuel D. Champlain Park was repaired in partnership with, I think it was CD Tech
Okay.
and Rotary, right? So those kinds of agreements and those kinds of partnerships that we're looking to develop on this.
And some of those highlighted items also would require an engineer to weigh in if there are structural issues to
Okay.
evaluate.
I wasn't quite sure what the difference was between the highlighted stuff and the not
Yeah,
highlighted
sure.
stuff.
Yeah, I just had one comment.
Yes.
Not to do with something specifically, but I'm having trouble talking to you. That's something. I really would like to receive these things a little sooner. I know these things that all come out probably much sooner than what they did. Like going over all this material one day before the meeting is difficult for me. I really like to spend some time on this stuff. I don't have a big heartburn with anything that's there, but I would like a little more time to review these things. I know you guys have probably worked on doing that, and several other people may have worked on this at great length, but it's the first time I've seen it. So I know we had talked about parks.
We
And we did not see the specifics.
Sure.
So,
Understood.
yeah, I agree. It's just not enough time for me to be able to get through documents because I work full time, so.
Yeah, well, the agenda comes out, typically the day before, 2 days before the actual meeting, and then, we also have the entire week to review these things before we actually put a stamp on it. So, this is advisory, as most committees are, as all committees are, they're advisory. Anything that is voted to go to the regular meeting, you have more time additional time to review. A vote at committee does not necessarily, a vote positive in committee does not mean a vote positive at the regular meeting, right? So that's the whole point of that structure.
Mayor, I'd
Yes,
just
sir.
like to add that we've
been discussing the state of the parks for well over a year now. You produced your first report on the parks
April
last spring.
2021.
Yes. And we've talked in numerous committees, numerous times about parks, and it's time to act. I think that, well, I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity. As you know, I've whined a whole lot about how I'm dismayed by the state of the parks and other city property. So to me, this is a real opportunity for us to do something great for the citizens of Plattsburgh, people who use those parks every single day. And I was reminded of this meeting as I walked down here this afternoon. I passed the arts park, a good example of a rebuilt, rejuvenated area, and there are children splashing in the pad, and I saw a couple of young guys take their bikes away from the bike rack and ride away. And I said, this is what a city is all about. This is what we should be doing. So got my support.
I just say I want to agree with Mike on that. I mean, I know that we want our parks to be great for our residents, but we also want them to be great for visitors. We want the city to become increasingly appealing to visitors again. After this long pandemic, that's one of the things that's important. And having that beautiful park access and having events that can go on there that are fun and meaningful to our community and beyond, I think is really important. And this is the doorstep, the doorway to getting there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And as outlined in the memo, as outlined in the memo, I think it's a cautionary tale to understand that it can't be a one and done. It's got to come back. We've got to come back and revisit some of these major revisions to parks that's needed, just based on new use of parks and how people are using parks and green space newly, as well as the ongoing maintenance. And that's kind of what we're trying to address with this program. We've heard it, I credit where credit's due. Councils before and mayors in the past have really set us up to be able to quantify how we're spending taxpayer dollars, right? We've got money in the bank, and that's taxpayer money in the bank. Let's invest that taxpayer money back into the community where it belongs. Let's show the taxpayers what they are spending their money on and leverage those funds appropriately. I appreciate the need to be cautious with the money that we have, and also very focused with the money that we have. And again, part of this spending on this does need to come out of the ARPA funds, which we're so grateful to have. But again, that too needs to look like an investment. Any further discussion?
I got a question. Can we officially change this to say ARPA funding is going to be used for 500,000? Since that was the last minute change, it says or use
of ARPA funds. I think when it comes to an actual expenditure, we can focus that amount.
See, the funding is specified to come from the general fund right now, which would be replaced by borrowing. But if we say we're going to use ARPA funding, we can break that line down into $1.5 million from $1 million from general fund and $500,000 from ARPA. Because I think you just said that, 500,000 be spent in 2022, and then the 2022 500 would be the ARPA funding. So if that's the case, I can change this for creation for meetings to say general fund and ARPA funding.
Okay, so we'll adopt it as is, and then how about this? We'll adopt it as is, and then come regular meeting, it will be updated to reflect ARPA funding for the 500,000.
For next week?
Correct.
So I'll get you an updated version of this for next week.
Yep.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Canales?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Talon?
Yes.
Counselor Bach?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
Carried. 2.3 draft resolution authorizing consulting agreement with Bart and LaJudas for park improvement project. Motion, Councilor Canales, second by Councilor Bach. Discussion. Roll call.
Canales?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Moore? Oh, sorry. Counselor Allen?
Yes.
Wait, what?
Counselor Gibbs.
Hello?
Gibbs? Counselor Gibbs.
Um,
Correct my name.
Somebody's having a long week.
I'm going to abstain from this because it just landed on our desk at 5 o'clock, so I'm going to abstain.
Counselor Talon?
Yes.
Counselor Box?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
Carried.
Sorry.
Item 3.1, draft resolution establishing of management policies and fees for city beach parking system. Motion by Counselor Canales, second. Second.
Oh, sorry.
I just need a second on that. Counselor Bob, discussion.
I thought you had a second. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's fine.
I just have some statements about the parking in general. When we had, as a city, had agreed to create a parking system, that was because we knew we would have a DRI project in the ground. And parking was also always part of that plan. Last year, when we decided to move forward with parking, was with the assumption that there would be a DRI project this year. I didn't know at that time that last year when we voted to move forward, that we would also be putting in motion the project to do a full depth reconstruction on Margaret Street, Court, Brinkerhoff. That's going to take place over the course of 2 years. So putting in parking and then massive construction, still hoping to put a DRI project in the ground. I just, I don't know how we're going to manage paid parking in an area that is going to be completely torn up 2 summers in a row. And I cannot agree to an $18 a day parking rate for the beach. I think that
Sorry, just, so we're talking about, so just so I'm clear, are we talking about?
parking in general, but then I'm looking at, I know the first resolution we're talking about is 3.1.
Okay,
And $18 a day is too much. I think in comparison to what state parks are charging, the fee structure doesn't seem to really line up. So how was the fee structure decided? Is that something you can speak to, Matt, or?
Counselor
Yeah.
Gibbs, may I interrupt for just a second to say, one of your assumptions there is that parking is somehow going to be affected by the work on Margaret Street. Margaret Street is not affected by this parking resolution in any way, shape, or form. So we need to correct that. And I also thought that it would be good to take, this is a lengthy resolution, and it is everybody's right to have questions about it. I thought it would be good if we could just take it bullet item by bullet item by bullet item, see if there are any questions, any concerns, and then collectively come up with what we think is the best solution. Would that be acceptable?
I'm agreeable with that.
sure.
No objection.
Okay. Well, I don't want to lead this discussion. You can lead it if you don't mind.
Fair
but,
enough.
Start with the hourly parking fee.
Yeah, so the proposal, and again, this is, you know, as I've said, and many people have probably heard me say this. This is the proposed pricing. Okay, last year, I will note that the council approved an updated parking structure during a return opening of the beach, if you will. After a COVID closure in 2020, we reopened the beach with fees not much unsimilar to these. The parking fee at the time at the beach was $11 for US vehicles and ranged between $13 to $14 for non-US vehicles. What we're talking about here is flattening that fee for everybody, making it the same. But rather than doing a daily only rate, there's an hourly rate that's also included. So if somebody wants to go down there for 2 hours, that they only pay $5. Alternatively, if somebody wants to stay down there all day, they can stay down there all day for $18. And understood, I've heard the same concerns as Councilor Gibbs has heard. Well, it's $7 to go to the state beach, and it's true. You know, I could say, well, we have a better park, and you know, there's a bar at our park and none of our other park. Use all those as justifications. Either way, this is a proposal. I've also proposed in the beginning, and again, most people have probably heard me say this, that, and I'm still an advocate for this, by the way, that the city and town residents should pay a fee to use the beach, to park at the beach. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to ask those people who use that facility to pay for the facility. And I've also had to take a step back and say there is also this Falcon Seaboard agreement, which expires at the end of this year. So kind of prepping everybody listening and everybody in the community to understand that come next year, I think we definitely need to have a different conversation for who pays for parking at the beach. Also last year, council approved a season permit of $110. Right? Now, what we're saying now is a $30 seasonal permit rather than a $110 permit. And I am aware that at least one person came to Matt's office looking for a $110 seasonal permit for the beach. That being said, these are proposals. And, you know, if the council feels $18 is too much and $7 is better, well, we're also then going back to last year's fees and saying, well, we're going to chip away at last year's fees for a comparison to the state park. Now, at the end of the day, you know, we have to justify the expense of the system and the beach operations and say, if we change the pricing on this, then it does impact the overall scope of the work that Matt did. Back to Councilor Gibbs's question, there was a document included in the packet for review, which outlined available parking, percentage use by resident, non-resident, how that calculated out to daily, hourly, seasonal permits, which then essentially expenses and revenues and penned out, I think at some point to some profitable operation at the beach, if and only if city and town residents paid. Taking that out, I think we'd be looking at I think my memory serves me, it's like $49,000 deficit or $40-something thousand deficit if city and town residents don't pay this year, but we keep these same rates. Now, if you go back and say, all right, well, you know what, $2.50 an hour, we want that increased or decreased, and $18 an hour is too much, we want that decreased, and $30 is too little, we want that increase, well, then we have to go back and redo the numbers based on the council's recommendation for charging and say, okay, these are the numbers. Okay, any offsets or any deficits run by the beach, as we normally do, we backfill it with taxpayer money. That's what we do, and that's not abnormal or unheard of. And but that's on both of these proposals. I think that's the dialogue that the council and we need to have about parking, in general, I guess, and parking at these different areas. Also, as discussed, this proposal is any profits do go back into investment into that specific area. So there is a reserve that will create for any profits that go right back into developing that area where we're charging for that parking. I don't know if that answered your question, Councilor Gibbs. I know it was a bit of a lengthy.
Well, like I said, the documents came in at 4:30 last night and I didn't get a chance to get through everything. I saw that breakdown and I haven't had a chance to get through all of it. There were other things in the agenda that took my time. What is the total cost of operating the 18 kiosks and the software? Do you know that dollar amount? I'm sure it's on the spreadsheet, so I'm sorry, if I'm being
Yeah,
redundant, but what is that
so-
total cost?
For the downtown system. So the total annual operating cost of the downtown system, based on the model, is $312,000 and change.
Per year,
That is,
per year, Matt?
yeah, per year, and that is the cost of the new Arnie phone lots, the Broad Street lot expansion, deducting the FRB funding, which we received for reimbursing some of those costs. So that's an annual bonding amount of about $83K. Then you've got the operating costs of the system itself, parking enforcement staff, the downtown labor, specifically works within the special assessment district. The fees associated with the kiosk system, miscellaneous charges. And the idea from the inception of this discussion for a paid parking system was that the system had to generate enough revenue to cover its own costs. So you have three ways of generating that revenue. Well, actually, in the downtown area, you have four ways. The special assessment district fees, which have been in place for decades, that's about 71 grand a year. You have parking fees generated by hourly and daily payments made either at the kiosk or via a mobile application. You've got parking fees generated by permit purchases, and then you've got fees generated by the issuance of parking violations. So with those four components, you need to come up with a model that gets you to a total annual revenue in excess of the total annual cost. So the way that the revenue model is set up now, there's about 405K in anticipated revenue versus 312 in anticipated costs. So that's an annual net operating income for the downtown system of about 93,000. It's at 93,000 because another part of the discussion we've had for years about the downtown system is that it should generate enough to eventually phase out these special assessment fees that the downtown property owners have been paying for years. So if you've got a surplus of 93,000 and you can still then take away all 71K in revenue you get from the SAD fees, and you still got a system that's running in the black, about 20K.
And the parking enforcement officer salary is included in this dollar amount?
Correct.
And are we going to be hiring a second parking enforcement officer?
Yes.
We are. So the addition of the second person, is this going to cover that second person?
Yes.
It will.
It was put together with the assumption that there will be 2 full-time parking enforcement staff operating year-round.
And to your point, Councilor Gibbs, regarding the Durkee Street development portion of the DRI, the only changes that were made were the addition of parking enforcement in that parking lot, given that that is now a marketable parcel for parking. And we wanted to maintain the consistency of that, the parking structure downtown where we had 2-hour free parking and also paid parking. Kiosk parking or permitted parking. Of the concern about available parking during construction. Matt could probably talk more intelligently than I can about parking availability. But I also believe that in the documents provided, there is a % usage of both surface parking and both surface parking and lot parking, which again, the numbers are in my head, but better on the sheet. Essentially, there's plenty of parking. Even if you took out parking on sections of Margaret Street or sections of Cork Street, there would still be available parking for people to park at, both on the surface and in parking lots. The nice thing about the kiosk system is that it's flexible. If we say, you know what, it'd be better for the community to, during the major construction phases that really interrupt downtown, and we take out 60 parking spaces because we've just torn up all Brinker off Court and Margaret, then we turn the system off for the 3 months, right? Give some reprieve and to folks that aren't, feeling like they're being pinched by the lack of parking or there's no place to park or they've got to walk a few blocks or something like that. So.
I thought, since we've kind of combined these two,
Yeah,
I personally
sure.
thought that the downtown plans and fees looked pretty good. I didn't have anything in that really struck me as glaringly problematic, but I agree with Councilor Gibbs and a lot of feedback I've been getting that the city beach fees just don't line up. That 18 per day, these 11 per day for US, I think that's pretty fair. 14, maybe even if we went up to 14 for all vehicles, but I think 18 is just too big a leap from 11 to 18. That's just a giant leap. And the 30 for the permit, I mean, that's very appealing and it makes it very attractive, but I still think 50 would be attractive for the permit. So I mean, I think, going from 110 to 30 and 11 to 18, those just don't make sense to me. So I would like to see something a little more incremental in terms of the increase in the day rate and maybe something a little less minimal in terms of the seasonal rate. So that's just where I
And
stand.
those are and those really are based on real calculations and estimates that Matt has run. But again, if,
Yeah, I looked them over and I
Yeah,
get it. I get where
yeah,
the numbers come from. I just still think we need to tweak them and figure out a different way because I just think that 18, I just think it's too big of a leap, especially right now, because there is so much work that still needs to be done at the city beach. Like, yes, we hope it'll be a better facility, but right now there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get it there. And on top of that, our city taxpayers do already fund the beach. So I just think that we need to keep those things in mind as we move forward with this pricing.
What
So-
about, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So we as citizens get to decide if we want to pay for an hourly parking or a daily parking pass, correct?
sorry, say that again, an hourly parking.
So the
or
hourly
daily parking?
parking fee or the daily parking fee, that's up to the customer, whoever's going, whoever the citizen is going to the city beach. They
Yeah,
go
and
to
like
the
they can
kiosk
also
and
buy
they say,
Yeah.
hey,
You can
I'm
also
only
buy
gonna
the
pay for
permit online.
five hours right now, or I'm gonna pay for all day, right?
Sure.
It's,
Or they can buy
Buy
the,
buy a seasonal permit and park there all summer long.
so it's up to the consumer, right?
Yep.
Okay, so from a consumer standpoint, they're always gonna look at the hourly fee vice the daily parking fee, but they may overextend that daily parking fee by going with the hourly. So at the end of the day, it's up to the customer, to the consumer, to the citizen, what they want to do. Honestly, I think the fee is fine.
250 times 8, like let's say somebody's there for 8 hours, still brings us right up to 18. So I mean, I guess I just personally stand by what I say. I mean, I see where you're coming from with that, and that's great. Just the feedback I've been getting from my ward, since this is in my ward, I do think I have to speak up for it, so.
What about just a flat fee? Like when you go to a state park, it's like a $7 fee. What if there were just a flat fee of $5? Period.
To park at the beach at any point in the summer, regardless of how long you plan to stay.
Yeah.
We could structure that way, certainly. We got any number of options with the IPS system. It's just a question of equity. And to your question from earlier, just my thought process, how I came to the beach structure. It's a 3-month season. There's a lot of costs where we have to account for deriving that revenue from basically a 100-day enforcement period. Trying to read the room, realizing that we would be asking city and town residents to pay to park at the beach for the first time in several decades. I thought it better to put a lower number on the permit figure with the assumption that most local residents would purchase a seasonal permit rather than worry about daily or hourly rates at the beach. So keep that number to a minimum, but in order to get to a revenue figure that would account for your costs, you do have to charge more than for the hourly and the daily rates, which is why it's considerably higher than it was in past years at the beach or higher than they currently charge at the state beach next door. But if the council is comfortable with running an operational deficit at the beach, I can put together the numbers, however you'd like to see them, give you whatever options you're looking for.
So last summer, I can't clearly recall this. Were we fully open for Canadians to come to the beach last year? I don't think we were, right?
we were completely open. It was the border.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. I wasn't clear in the way I asked the question, but so now is the border is open?
Correct.
You probably can't give me this answer offhand, but I'm just asking the question anyway. What is the daily use with Canadian traffic in a normal summer? I don't know if you have that. And
Past numbers, right?
Yes, and-
2019.
so I'm asking that because considering, and I've heard this as well, Caitlin, from residents who've reached out to me. Considering we've been all these years with city residents have never had to pay an entry fee. That being said, I will go to Osable Point, and meet up with friends who live down in that area, and I'll pay a daily rate because I'm okay with paying that. If we came up with I'm just giving just some thoughts.
Sure.
Came up with a daily rate that's lower than what you're going to pay to state park, irrespective of who you are or where you're coming from. I think we should have a discount for persons of disability and senior citizens. But what kind of revenue would that look like if we anticipate that we would have Canadians there? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Something to the effect of everybody pays $5. I don't see that as a huge amount. And I think it's reasonable as a beginning point. I think that when we're trying to figure out, or not figure out, when we're trying to enact a fee structure, I think it would be better for us to start with something a little lower that we could probably increase slowly, depending on use and people, becoming used to paying it, rather than it's $18 a day. I mean, you just got back from Maine. I go to Maine every year. I pay $20, $25 to go to Ogunquit Beach because it's Ogunquit Beach. That's just my thoughts. I think that if we came up with a flat fee, less than what you would pay to state park, everybody pays the same thing. I mean, I don't know how council feels about it. I'm just putting some ideas out there and start lower. And we've got the ability to increase it if we need to as time goes on. But I think any parking fee structure should start lower.
Well, I would point to that we currently have a flat day rate right now. It just fluctuates depending on the vehicle, which is essentially something we would like to eliminate for simplicity and for the use of the kiosk. The other pause that I would give is we charge $11 now. I definitely wouldn't say charge less than what we currently charge right now, which is what people are already paying and what they have been paying. So that's the only concern that I would have with starting low. I probably wouldn't start lower than what we're already charging. I don't know. So it's already the product that we're providing for that.
But that $11 is for city residents.
That $11 for any US traffic period. Because we don't charge US residents, or we don't
charge city residents. That's what I'm saying.
Right, city, yeah, we don't charge city residents at all or town residents, but the $11 that council passed last year is for any US vehicle. So Lime Mountain folks, Beacon Town folks, Champlain, Peru, right? So it's anybody that is not a city or town resident. That's what we currently have on the books.
The thing that we seem to be hung up on is the daily parking rate. Most of us seem okay with the $2.50 per hour and a $30 seasonal permit. So why don't we focus on the $18 and see what is an acceptable figure? I just got back from Ogunquit and it's still considered the low season there. $15 to park at the city parking lot. But in the high season, the last time I was there in high season, it was $25. Mm-hmm. So they make a lot of money in Ogunquit from parking. And the closer you get to the ocean, the more it costs. But I think that'd be a good place to start, is to say, well, if you're not comfortable with $18 a day, what is a reasonable figure? What do you think?
For me, I'd be comfortable with 11. I'd be comfortable with taking that 11 that's currently to all US vehicles and saying it's now for everybody, for parking. It's not access, it's for the parking. So if somebody wants to ride their bike there, a city resident, then it's free.
But riding bikes and riding bikes walk is free. So.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
I know, that's what I'm saying. So people, I did, to the point though, regarding, accessibility, I do think, I thought I saw that the downtown, handicap parking would be free.
Yes.
Will that be also at the beach as
Yes.
well? Okay, I think that's important. So I'm glad to know that. But yeah, I think I see where Elizabeth's coming. I'd like to be able to start low, but I also know that we made this investment. We need to cover costs, and we'd also like to be able to invest in our beach. So I'd be comfortable with 11. I just can't go as high as 18.
Well, what that means then is that the hourly parking fee and the seasonal permit fees should probably go up to offset the loss.
At least the seasonal permit. I don't know if hourly has to or not, but that's something that. can look at.
Well, I think it would be good information to know what we're anticipating the traffic will be. Because the borders open and Canadians will come down.
Yeah, the last year when everything was normal, 2019, the data that we have showed 32,000 total visitors to the beach. About 20,000 of those were from outside the city or the town, the other 12 were city and town residents.
Do you remember our daily rate then? 2019?
2019, I think it was maybe $10 for a car. Yeah, pretty similar. Cracks, that's not important.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to mention about the 11 was that Elizabeth had mentioned having a flat rate instead of even having the hourly. And that's kind of what I was saying, that we could, instead of even having, we could look at that at one flat rate for the day.
Yeah,
So get rid of hourly.
That's
yes.
something we could consider.
I mean, like hourly is just a convenience based on the technology that we're using, to be honest. And if somebody, I agree, that nobody has gone into the gate, paid their $10 and then left 2 hours and said, I'd like the difference of my money back from the time I've spent. I mean, it's, I think last year we had some requests from vendors who were serving dinner down there. They said, we just want people to be able to come and park for a couple hours without spending $11 to come down.
But
Sorry, again, it's a flexible system. I think we'd be fine with eliminating, it's just running the numbers, right? If we said, okay, we're just gonna get rid of the hourly rate and just keep the day rate the same, increase the park or the monthly access or the permitted access. Let's just, I'm fine with starting there.
and my
That's the
other
easiest.
my other thought is if it's just a flat rate to get in, what would parking enforcement look like? Would it be simplified?
It would be somewhat simplified. It would still be pay by plate. You roll into the parking lot, you go to a kiosk, you enter your license plate number. Rather than choosing from paying for a few hours or a day, there would just be a single option to pay for the entire day. And the parking enforcement staff, that information would get routed to their handheld. And if they see a car that hasn't paid or doesn't have a permit, they issue a ticket.
Which I think is another attractive option, because if we're trying to make money and we're hiring another person, and that's part of the reason why we have to charge the fees, I see this as a way to bypass the necessity of hiring another parking enforcement individual and pay salary. If we could simplify a system, or we wouldn't have to do that.
You gotta pay somebody
But we've already
7 days a
got
week.
one person though.
Yeah, but also just the entire scope of parking right now is expounding. It's growing, expounding. It's growing exponentially because we're enforcing parking in paid parking lots downtown, not because we're enforcing paid parking up at the beach. It just so happens that with this extra person, we can enforce parking at the beach because we're removing that gate.
And to the mayor's point, the moment that the new parking system is activated, the number of parking spaces that our parking enforcement staff will have to monitor will double overnight. Because we really now don't have active enforcement in the off-street lots because we don't charge it.
And there's no time limit.
Correct, in the vast majority of off-street spaces.
So to look back to another question about the flexibility of the system, so, and also the concerns of the vendors, like the beach bar, because that's a good point. So if we are able to have a day rate, are we also in theory able to have a half day rate? Like if a day rate is 8 hours, could we say $6 for 4 hours? I mean, how much are we able to customize here? Could we say half day rate, seasonal rate? Is that something that can be done? Is it that fine pointable?
Yeah,
You
within
know.
reasonable limits, you can set up any structure that you want.
So somebody, if they're, if they're only going
5
for
and 10.
dinner, they could maybe just do a half day rate and they pay 6.
Yeah.
If they're staying for the day, they pay 11.
Or I know that we're looking at having events at the beach,
Right.
right? If they're only gonna go for half the day, to just go to the event, just pay for the 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever that half day rate is.
I still think that anything that we charge above what the neighboring state park is charging is going to cause a lot of outrage. Just do.
What did they charge last year?
Last year, similar to what they charged this year, $7 for a day pass.
But the difference is we're asking city residents to pay
No, we're not, though. That's the,
eventually.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
eventually, but that's not this year,
It's
but
per
yes,
vehicle.
it's,
Per
it,
vehicle.
it is, yeah, it will eventually come.
Mhm.
And I think that's fair. I think that's, I know we're getting off track with the rates here, but I think that's a fair conversation to start having with folks.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I just think it's the
Yeah.
dollar amount that is gonna make the difference
Yeah.
between people saying, well, I'll go to the state park instead or whatever.
Just a point of clarification, so for this year, is the council looking to exempt city and town residents from any type of parking fees on the beach?
Well, it sounds like Falcon
That
Seaboard
is
doesn't
my-
expire till the end of the year.
Council, that is my request. I know that this is something that I pushed and I will continue to push, but I think to the agreement, that we're in right now until the end of this year, I think it's fair to continue to honor that agreement and not ask city and town residents to pay parking fees.
One thing that I do not like about the daily parking rate alone without an hourly option is that I'm a senior citizen and I can't stay at the park all day. If I do, I'll fry myself and that wouldn't be good. So what I would say though, is that I really like the sound of the half-day fee that, I'd gladly pay half of whatever that daily parking rate ends up being to go to the beach. So if it's 11, it's $5.50. That's a really reasonable way to spend a couple hours at the beach. So that has some merit, I think. I would go along with that, whatever it turns out to be. But at the same time, we do have to remember that there are costs for this operation. And we don't want parking to end up being a losing proposition. So that might mean that the seasonal permit rate would have to go up. But I was wondering maybe if Matt could work up a few scenarios for us. One being what happens if we charge a half-day rate and then a full-day rate? And then what would we have to charge for the seasonal permit to offset that? Could we have that done?
Yeah, I could run that scenario, and the ultimate goal would be for the system to be operating in the black, right? No operational deficit at the end of the year.
Absolutely, yeah. Be good to make a little money so we can invest in the beach and the downtown area.
That is likely going to require significant increases in the permitting rate. If we go that route, but I can run those numbers. and get back to you.
Councilor Fallon.
Yeah, so I'm like looking at the hours of enforcement between 10 and 6 o'clock. Wasn't there a time where the beach was free after 4 o'clock? Because that's when I cannot be in the sun, so that's when I would usually choose to go to the beach after 4 o'clock.
You and Mike should go together.
So,
Yeah, my son's a redhead and I hear that. Yeah, I do.
so like, is it possible you can stop the enforcement at 4 o'clock, like maybe start at 8 o'clock? to
Well,
four?
I think, there's not a lot of people at the beach at 8 o'clock.
Some
AM.
families have young kids. They like to
Sometimes,
go
yeah,
early.
sometimes, and that's fair.
Those are the ones we want to give a break to.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the whole idea, especially with downtown as well, is we charge for the peak hours. Peak hours at the beach are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Peak hours downtown, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. I think I'd be hesitant to change those peak hour charges because those are the times that we are looking at gaining revenue from the parking system.
Okay, I had to at least try.
No, it's all dialogue, and I think that the dialogue is productive and it's positive and hearing, that's the whole point of this, so.
And also, I want us to think about the people that really do use the beach, and usually it's a lot of families, and usually a lot of those families don't have a whole lot of money, and that's why they tend to go to the beach sometimes. That's their entertainment. So we don't want to price these families out of wanting to come to the beach, especially with gas prices the way they are. Gas prices were not the way they are when these numbers were done. So we have to take this all into account to make it fair.
It confused me there for a minute. You said that city and town residents aren't going to pay for parking, is that what you said?
Correct.
Just this year.
Oh,
This year.
okay, I didn't understand that. Okay, people parking. All right,
No, I think that,
okay.
Just to Jen's point, that's why the 18th, that's why I can hung up on the 18th. Because to me, at least I think the families I work with in 18 to them would represent a hardship, whereas something a little more reasonable, 10, 11, 12 is something more manageable.
Mayor, one point on scheduling, beach is scheduled to open on May 27th, which is not next week, the following week. So next Thursday's council meeting would be the last opportunity to codify what this fee structure is going to look like at the beach prior to the opening.
Yeah.
It'll be tight to work with IPS to implement using their software, whatever structure the council approves. But if we're not at a point next Thursday where we can actually adopt a fee structure for the beach, we'll be in a position where we won't have a system in place when the beach opens to charge people for parking. So we would either have to do whatever necessary to find a consensus to approve something next week, or just live with not charging for the first couple of weeks of the beach until we come to a consensus as to what the council's comfortable charging.
Yeah, I actually just had a conversation with Dean about that, and it's the recommendation to adopt this as it is now. Let us go back and make some changes and then amend it on the floor so that it does get passed timely with enough time to make those changes. Okay.
Well, draft means draft, so I mean, it means it's a working document. So
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Canales?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Talon?
Yes, because this is a draft.
Counselor Bob?
yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
Carried. Item 3.2, draft resolution establishing of management policies and fees for downtown area parking system. Motion. Councilor Canales, second by Councilor Bob. Discussion.
So, oh,
Go ahead.
what kind of, what is the feedback from residents
I'm
downtown?
sorry, pardon?
What is the feedback from residents downtown regarding this fee structure?
Honestly, there hasn't been many residents per se. I've heard more from, for example, I had a conversation with Mike Zerlo. They pay the most out of the SAD fee, the county does. Fine with it. They need to also establish a way to get permits for their employees, and they want to pay for permits for their employees.
So is the county paying for the permits for their employees?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, the county will.
Okay.
Again, I haven't heard a lot from downtown residents or people living downtown.
Mhm.
You read whatever we read online.
Well, I don't spend a lot of time there, so.
Counselor Gibbs, I wish I were you, and I would love to.
I
Turn
unplug from the matrix often.
Delete button. Oh my God, don't read the comment section, is that what they say? I'm a sucker for the comment section, I should not read those comments. But I also, I think where I get frustrated with this conversation is that when we talk about, what we're talking about is parking enforcement between 8 AM and 4 PM, Monday through Friday. Essentially, what does that mean? Essentially, what do I think that means, or how do I convey that? Is that if you come and park on the street, it's both enforced in the parking lot and on the street. If you're coming downtown to do some shopping, you're not going to be charged for parking. Just park in the 2 hour spot like we have been. Last year, we actually established a standard 2 hour parking throughout all of downtown, where in some places we had 30-minute parking on the same side of the street, the opposite side of the street, where we had an hour parking, which is just a little weird. So we established 2 hour parking consistently downtown. So if you come downtown at, say, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's it. You can park there for the rest of the night. If you leave your car downtown, which we want you to leave your car downtown if you go out drinking, leave your car downtown, you can come pick it up at 10 o'clock the next day and still not have a ticket, because there's a 2 hour window there. The whole point of the long-term parking is to get downtown employees and residents and people who tend to park in front of their business, to get them into longer term lots to free up those 2-hour spaces for everybody else. Permits, people, and we do encourage permits for residents and downtown employees and business owners who want to buy permits for their employees. That even if you have a permit, you still can't park in the 2-hour surface parking. You've got to be parked in the parking lot. If you park on surface 2-hour surface parking with a permit, you're still going to get a ticket. And the 2-hour surface parking is really reserved for people who want to do business and commerce and do their visits downtown.
Excuse me, Chris, do you mean that you'll get a ticket if you park there for more than 2 hours? Or you'll get a ticket if you park there at all?
No, you get, yeah, it's still enforced. It's still enforced 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
yeah.
somebody could have this permit. and be
Yeah,
like,
yeah. If you get a permit and you park in your 2 hours, it's not like, oh, you got a permit and you're in the 2 hour, you can park there for 10 minutes, you get a ticket. No, no, no. Still, still enforced. 2-hour parking, surface streets enforced regardless. Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Going back to Councilor Gibbs' original question, I quite frankly haven't heard a lot from residents downtown. And I'm following Facebook and, I get the same 5 or 6 people that, are up in arms about the city of Plattsburgh in general.
Jeff, what about you? I mean, I know
I've had a
you're,
couple calls.
and what's the feedback you're getting?
Well, people who live down here, not especially Florida, obviously.
Yeah.
I didn't get a lot of calls, just a couple.
Are employees of the Department of Social Services, are they paying or are they being reimbursed by their employer the way the county
That
is?
is county, that is Clinton County.
Oh, it's all county. Okay, I wondered about that.
And again, I think it's beneficial for us to. I don't want to cut the city out at the knees, but I think it's beneficial for us to have conversations with those special assessment district payers to look at how much they're paying in their fee, special assessment fee, and look how much they're going to pay in permits and offset that expense. I know that's not what we talked about. Sorry, Matt. But I think it's fair to have that conversation with those folks. And some of these folks are just, they are downtown residents, or they own their building and they're renting out the retail space and they live upstairs. $1,000 a year, right?
In special assessment district fees?
Yeah, the special assessment district fee. Where if they bought a permit, offset the amount that they're paying in the special assessment district fee by the amount that they pay for their permit. It's essentially what they're paying for anyway, by paying that special assessment district fee, is the parking or to offset the parking requirement for their building. I know that that's a little bit further down the line, maybe in this conversation for downtown parking. But again, the whole goal is to, in my mind, there's a couple different goals. One is to eliminate the special assessment district fee. Ask the people who are using the parking to pay for the parking. There is an overlap there. But then there's an opportunity to reinvest monies back into downtown, back into the beach, based on any profits that we make in terms of parking and leveraging that commodity to generate revenue to invest back into the city. Councilor Dow.
Can we go through this point by point like we did with the beach rates?
Proposed, again, this is all calculated in that spreadsheet, and as Matt said, calculated out to a profit of about $90,000. When you look back at offsetting the special assessment district fee of about $71,000, that leaves approximate $20,000 net income for operating the downtown system alone. And we have split out the operational expenses and revenues of both systems. $1 per hour, parking downtown and parking lot between 8 and 4. You pull up at 8 o'clock, you pay your hour, you leave at 9.
Seems reasonable.
Sure. $7.25 for the day. That's a 75-cent discount if you're doing that math. Quarterly permit, so valid for 3 months. That is to purchase your parking permit purchased online. It's associated to your license plate. You're paid when you start, quarter after when you start to when it ends, 3 months, right? Between the time you purchase to the time that it expires, $90. The half year or 6 month permit, thank you for adding that. $180 for a 6 month permit, and then for an annual permit, $324. I will note that last regular meeting, the council dissolved the $3 per day permit, which we did have a $3 per day permit. And if you multiply that out for the amount of days in the year, it's a significant discount to what this permit system and the daily rate permit provides.
Okay, so I was taking a look at the quarterly permit, so $90 for valid for 3 months, so that's 90 days. It seems that'd be like $1 a day. It seems you're including Saturdays and Sundays in it when we're not charging for Saturday and Sunday parking, so shouldn't that, when you figure 4 weekends in a month, so subtract $8, so $82 for that, would that be more fair?
I didn't see this rate, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see this as representing $1 a day. I thought it just represented what could be reasonable for that quarter, and it's a significant savings as compared to if somebody were paying $7.25 Monday through Friday. Like, let's see, what's that? So right then and there, that's 7 times 5, we got $35 a week plus so it would be over 35 a week. So this would bring it down to 30 a month. So instead of paying, it would be what, 140 a month, they're only paying 30 a month. So it's a pretty big savings overall as compared to if you were just doing Monday through Friday at $7.25 a day.
And as I mentioned before, I think I sometimes when I repeat myself, I'm not repeating myself at you all, mostly for this here. The addition of Durkee Street parking lot is primarily a function of the postponement of development of that parking lot. As most who were part of that conversation understood that the development of the anticipated development of that lot was going to take off some parking spots and convey them over either to private parking or controlled parking by a third party. But given that there's an unknown aspect to when, we do say when, that parking lot gets developed, standardize the parking downtown, capitalize on the commodity that's available to us there, and charge for it.
So I also want to say, like, as far as for residents, so if the residents live in the city, but they don't necessarily work in the city, or they work somewhere that they drive to, they don't even really have to worry too much about this because they're going to be gone during that 8 to 4. I used to live in a very similar circumstance where there was 2-hour parking and I was gone during it. So I got home and it was no problem. The other thing is when I lived in a city that did have parking issues, and I don't personally feel that Plattsburgh does, but I know that there's a lot of mixed feelings on that. But when I lived in a city that definitely did, if I could have had a permit at any of these rates, oh my gosh,
Yes.
and known that I had a spot that I could rely on within proximity to my apartment, I can't even tell you what that would have meant for me. So I think this is a great proposal.
The other thing is I don't say, same thing with handicap parking. This is not handicap parking. And I don't say this flippantly, and I don't say it like a throwaway. And I believe we did this last council too, is we removed enforced parking outside of the special assessment district. Meaning, for those who can and are willing to park a little bit further outside of the downtown, they can walk in. If they want to park on Oak Street, past Cornelia, they can walk, that's free. Anything west of Oak Street is free. Anything east of the bridge is free. So
I never drive downtown.
it's a little bit of a walk, right? But that's an alternative for those who can and are able and willing to walk the extra couple blocks, especially if they're going to park downtown or they're working downtown 7 days or 5 days a week, 8 to 4, right?
So going back to the residents of downtown Plattsburgh, well, some of them, some of them do work downtown. And some of them have jobs that, they're just making enough just so they can have that apartment. So this parking is going to be a real expense for them. So I'm just trying to look out for them and see if, we can try to make it easier on our downtown residents and our downtown business owners.
Sure.
I have a question
Yes, sir.
somewhat related to Jennifer's concern, is that be it further resolved that quarterly, semi-annual, and annual permits shall be made available on a first come, first served basis to those members of the public who provide acceptable documentation of residency or employment within the SAD. Now, how many of those are going to be available? Have we set a limit on the maximum number of permits that we can?
Yeah.
We have, it's 5% of the available, it's 5% above the available parking, parking spots available in those long-term lots.
So everybody potentially could have a parking permit if they.
Potentially they could. The reality of it is, Mike, that 60, I think something like 60-something% of the parking lots are occupied, which remains 40% available. Even if we oversold, if you will, permits, there's still plenty of parking.
Still plenty.
Yeah. there's
Okay.
Still plenty of parking.
Okay.
Yeah.
The numbers are 431, in the downtown system, 431 permits to be made available based on usage statistics from 2019, when we were doing all the parking counts downtown. We estimate the total number of permits to be in use at any one time to be about 257. So there's quite a buffer.
Is there a way we can figure out some kind of a parking validation system for some of our downtown business owners? Like for the ones that would probably have somebody that might need to be in their business for more than 2 hours, like, is there a way we can do that? Like figure out like maybe a discounted rate for the business owners?
Or like to validate the
Like-
parking in some way?
Yeah, like the business owners might like be able to prepay for parking validation and just like, just somebody comes in and then they give them, like, okay, punch in this in the machine and then you're good. That kind of thing.
I don't know.
That I haven't, but I can certainly ask the question.
Okay.
So essentially, it would be like the business owner would owe, they would pay the fee after the fact instead of having the client pay the fee. Is that, I'm just trying to figure out what.
Yeah, because like, well, we had a business owner come talk to us like about how she was very concerned and everything. So I didn't know if maybe this might be a way that this could kind of like, like.
If the person was parked in one of the 2-hour spots, they would still have to move their car, because the 2-hour spot that's free would still be ticketed after the 2 hours. There's not like a way to prevent that, right? The car would still have to be moved.
Yes.
Right, so but if they, so you're saying if they were a paid lot
Like if they're like at our pavilion, like,
and wanted to pay for the first 2 hours, but were there for longer, it would be validated. Because you said the first 2 hours.
business owner could validate the parking for however long they were there. Just like,
Somebody has- You can't just
Right, they'd have to pay the rate.
say no, somebody doesn't have to pay because they were in a particular place. It's not, if they park in the lot, they have.
well, now, are all of these spots going to be free for the first 2 hours?
No, everything that's in a lot is going to be paid from the moment you get into the lot. It's the street parking that's going to continue to be 2 hours.
I kind of think it should be 2 hours everywhere, but.
Plus a small section of the Durkee Street lot. The northern section is 2-hour free parking.
Yes.
Correct.
The spots that are closer to the co-op.
Bridge Street or.
Yeah, Bridge Street. Yeah. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Canales?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Talon?
Yes, only if it's a draft.
Counselor Bott?
Yes,
Counselor Moore?
Yes,
Carried. 4.1, discussion 2022 year-to-date report.
Did we get those reports in our packet, in our email? I didn't see them.
I sent it out,
Yeah.
beginning of May.
yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
May 5th, I think.
It wasn't in the packet.
Is that
I had
attached?
it in my emails.
Yeah, I went through the whole folder. I didn't see it.
No, it wasn't in the folder. He had emailed it to us.
Oh, it's in a separate email?
I email it to the mayor and then he sends
And then we
it
sent it out.
I think it was earlier in the month. I thought I had it. I looked up here today.
I'm
and I was
looking- I'm
at
looking right
cash
now.
It's not in the
reports, so-
folder we got. That's what I'm saying.
No,
Oh, see?
It's not.
It's not in the folder.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't there.
So when did we receive it then?
May 5th, he said, right?
Well, I mean, I can't remember the date exactly, but I know I finished it first part of May and sent it to the mayor and Beth. You don't have your email, right, Beth? Can't get it there.
Oh, I don't want to take yours, Richard.
I got it.
Beth can give us give me a new one.
That's all right.
Caitlin said she had it and she found the email.
Where was it?
I
Yeah,
got
I thought I
my
did find my email. I just looked through. I will go through my email when I get home and forward it to everybody, but I don't think.
Yeah.
Anyway, the results are out.
Apologize.
April.
Normally, we add those, but must have missed that, sorry.
I can start sending it to everybody if you want me to, or just to the mayor. How do you want to do it, Mayor?
You can just send it to me. I'll make sure it gets into the folder, Richard.
Okay. All right. So anyway, the results are done and basically the numbers, especially in the general fund, are just the same as last year. I mean, pretty much mirror image, except for last year we had state revenue of about 400,000 more than we do this year. And that was because from 2020, we lost the funding for AIM and then the state replaced at the beginning of last year.
Mhm.
And then we also had some funding that we had to advance from the general fund for some capital spending, about 400,000. Of course, that was repaid this past March, so it's taken out of the expense at the end of the year when it was going to be an receivable. So anyway, the numbers are pretty much exactly the same. You're looking at roughly 9 million, and I don't have the numbers. in front of
Oh,
me.
yeah, take it
That's all right,
out.
though.
No, go ahead.
You're looking at roughly, what are the numbers on the first page?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you know how to read this? 6.6 in expenditures and 9.2 in revenue. Pretty much the same as last year. So the graphs look different because once again, last year's budget was vastly different from this year. It was $1.5 million less for expenditures and revenues. And this year is more reasonable, what we're gonna actually do for spending and for revenue. The critical pieces to look at as far as the expenses are the overtime. They're running almost 50%. And it's a third through the year. Contract services look like 50%, but don't be fooled by that because that's encumbrances that people are throwing out there to cover the whole year being counted in as part of the total expense year to date. So you got to look at the actual spending column on that, and it's under what a third would be. Healthcare benefits and employee benefits in general are 34%. Year before they were 29, year before they were 26. Not looking good for healthcare this year. We're going to be about 3% higher than planned, and could be worse. Next year, healthcare is looking like a 10% increase over what's going to happen this year. So all this inflation that we're hearing about, it's making its way into the healthcare costs. Those guys aren't going to sit back and not bill if everybody else is billing. So the details are all there. If you have any questions, those are the highlights. The overtime should be looked at. Mostly it's in police and fire, obviously. Any questions on the numbers? One of these days you can put them back up on the screen and I go through page by page and really put you guys to sleep. Fun
It's helpful
stuff.
though.
Huh?
It's helpful though.
You can learn a lot by
Yeah.
going, bouncing up and down, back and forth.
We
Now,
will.
those last pages are good because you compare 3 years, actually, it's 4 years of expenses comparison, so that's pretty helpful to look at.
Oh, thank you. Discussion on any further questions about the report? Okay. Online bill pay, e-pay customer account.
Well, I wasn't sure what you meant about that.
We're just trying to track the transition of customers and getting more customers on e-bill and online payments.
Well, I think if you want to count on those, as far as people signing on to pay online, I don't know if you can ask Courtney to kind of gauge how many clicks are going to make a payment, and then just actually count the customers that are going in to do that. But I got some statistics on all the different ways that we pay or receive bills electronically. The auto pay accounts that are established right now are 1,857. That's about 14% of our total 13,000 customer accounts. So it's up from 407 back in March of 2000. March of 2009. So it's up like 250%, which is good. I never thought it would get that high. I always thought we'd say around 500 to 600 because that was the people, that was the number of people who really wanted auto pay. And I kept hearing from them all the time. But I think the pandemic hysteria actually changed a lot of people's approach to how they pay the bills. And so they're taking advantage of the auto pay. As far as e-bills, I don't know if that e-pay meant e-bills, but we have about 1,289 e-bill customers, and that's up from 1,002 back in 2009. It just doesn't grow that much, people getting the e-bills. And they've been having trouble getting them through the new mail services that is using, because Munis doesn't interface with Gmail. We fixed that problem because we had to send out most of the e-bills manually in the month of March and some in April. We got it fixed, but now anybody who has a Gmail address can't get an e-bill from the city through the Gmail email address the city is using. I don't know why. If you have a Gmail account, it's like 80 of the customers, they're gonna have to either change it or look at something else. Munis is having a lot of trouble getting with Gmail, and they said that from the start, that they just don't interface with it as far as sending out email information and notices. But we got the notices fixed for approval of requisitions and other things that you get in your emails to automatically approve things. The managers use that. And we got most of the e-bills fixed, but 80 of them are just not going to work so far. Anyway, and that number will go back down to around 1,000 once the students all leave, because they close their accounts down and they're not getting e-bill mail anymore, email for their bills. It stays around 1,000 because people still want to pay the bill. Anyway, 1,857 is auto pay. So those are the people that have signed up to have their bill being paid right out of their checking account every month. Whether they get an e-bill or not, they get a notice on the bill that says, this is the amount that you owe and it's going to be taken out of your account on the due date. Now, as far as actual, I guess you would say, online bill paying customers, between credit cards and e-checks for the last year, we've collected $7.4 million in payments. That equates to about a total of 45,000 customer accounts on an annual basis. So call it 3,800 monthly. Now, these are people that are going into the system or calling us and saying, I want to pay with a credit card or I want to pay with an e-check. The credit card amounts were 26,000 of that, and the e-check amounts were 19,000. However, the dollars on e-checks is 5 million versus the dollars on the credit cards is 2 million. People like the e-checks, and they pay a lot of bills, but it's only 80 cents an e-check. Plattsburgh Housing Authority pays 200 accounts a month with it by setting up 10 different payments. They do 20 accounts at a time. They set up to 20 accounts 10 times, or 20 accounts times 10 is equal to 200. So they set those up and they release them. It's only 80 cents a check they apply. So, and it makes it easier for us to apply it. So anyway, that's 3,800 a month on average are paying with credit card and with e-check. Lockbox, we average about 2,378 lockbox payments a month. And that means the customer has mailed their payment to our lockbox, like you do with your credit cards, which says send this to Phoenix, Arizona. We get back an electronic file for uploading payment. It's the easiest process we have to apply payments. So I mean, that's a big electronic payment, although people are still mailing a check. Or they're having their bank do online bill pay and mail us a check to that address. So that takes care of what I think is the electronic payments. I think we have 125 other accounts, including New York State, where they pay us with what's called an ACH, automatic clearinghouse transfer. New York State won't cut a check anymore. You gotta have ACH receipts for them. And then we have some other customers that are set up that way too. under what's called Mars. It's a system that sends ACHs. Similar to what the state does, except that they're doing their online banking through a bank that actually sends ACH transfers instead of checks. And so the remainder of the payments we get, about 5,000, call it 79 a month, are through the Dropbox, the regular mail or walk-ins, about 250 a day are paying that way. So I hope that answers that question. 1857 auto pays isn't bad. I still think it's going to take several years, maybe about 10 more years for it to get to the point where it's looking like it's the majority of our customer accounts. Because there's just not that many people who want to set up auto pay at this point. But as generations change, I think it'll become more popular.
4.3 discussion on ClearGov. I think that, sorry, Richard, I think that everybody, an account was created for everybody. Was everybody able to log in and get access? Okay.
So we're sending them updates weekly. They're putting numbers in weekly. I keep checking the transparency page that isn't out on the website at this point, I guess.
I think the only, we have access to it internally, all the reporting.
Looks
but
good.
It looks good.
It looks really good.
We haven't embedded it into our webpage yet.
And the actual numbers are coming out accurately on it. So I keep feeding that and they're uploading weekly and they don't have many problems with their account structure. All of that mapping has been taken care of. I'm going through the budgeting process about halfway through. That doesn't look like it's going to be that difficult to use in ClearGov. It'll be similar to what we did last year. We'll get worksheets out there for the payroll projections. I'll put the number in that line, attach the worksheet to that line so anybody can go look at it, but not change the worksheet. And then tell the person who's responsible for that line, it's time for you to go in there and finish that off. If you accept it, fine. If you don't, update it. And then, you can attach your updates to it. So the budgeting process is going to take a little time for everybody to get used to it. But we're going to have to assign roles for different department heads to go into different line items for the budgets and actually do the work in there instead of sending the information to put in meetings.
Is there a plan for this to be on our webpage and live? Do you know when that will be implemented so that people can see it?
Yeah, I don't have
It's
an
out there
actual
right
plan right
now.
now, but
Anybody can go out there and sign in to ClearGov if they have a role like you guys were just assigned. When I set one up for Michael, he asked about it and the mayor did it, everybody else did.
Mhm.
So we can set up roles for anybody to go in there and access.
yeah,
all
but for the
different
public though, I think
Yeah.
that people can go to the city's ClearGov webpage and look at it that way,
Right.
rather than having it embedded. Right now, we haven't had any very clear plan of embedding it or getting it out yet, other than getting it up and running, getting counselors access to it so that we can, people can get trained on it. And
That's all you would need is a link.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah, I don't think it'd be that difficult, or a link back to the ClearGov website for the city of Plattsburgh.
But the public won't have access to the budgeting I was just talking about.
Mhm. Yeah,
But all the departments.
Just the transparency pieces that they'll have access to.
Now, there's a digital budget book that's the next step after the budgeting that I'm going to look at. And I think that's where it takes the budgeting module that's in the system and reduces it to something that's digital that will show up on the website for the public to look at. So I think everybody's gotten the training modules. I thought we were going to get some direct training. They're seeming to shy away from that. I say, hey, when are we going to get some online, training, Zoom training, where we get, face-to-face or anything? They said, well, here's these tutorials for you. So I think that they're avoiding that. Maybe that's why it's so inexpensive. But anyway, I don't think it's that difficult as far as the budgeting. It's just going to be another process where you plod through it account by account by account.
4.3 draft resolution authorizing budget adjustment for police department.
thank you, Richard.
Insurance deductible. Thanks, Rich. Motion by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Canales. Discussion.
Does this conclude?
Yep.
Okay,
Roll call.
Council Canales?
Yes.
Council Kelly?
Yes.
Council Gibbs?
yes.
Council Talon?
Yes.
Council Bob?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes,
Carried. Draft resolution 4.5, resolution title Authorize the withdrawal of tax of parcel from taxation and authorize the city of Chamberlain as tax enforcement officer of the city to deliver a certificate of prospective cancellation for the parcel to both the city assessor and the county director of real property services in order to receive an exemption from taxation, ad valorem levies, and special assessments for the parcel 15 couch motion. Counselor, you have a second. Counselor Canales, discussion.
Yeah,
Sure. There's a lot to this one.
we've been talking about this parcel of property for years and years.
We have.
So the language in the resolution where it says the council has determined the parcel has been withdrawn from foreclosure proceedings in 2022.
Correct.
And then, a little bit farther down here, it says, council desires to cancel the property tax lien on the parcel and make the parcel eligible for exemption from taxation.
Yep.
Why don't we just foreclose on it?
It's not something that the city wants to own.
Well, I gotta speak up on that because.
I get you. What just happened there, I completely, I kind of tamped that down too, but I completely understand what you're talking. What this is doing is not absolving anyone from their financial responsibilities to pay what is owed to the city. What the problem is, and Richard can expound on this, we're obligated to make these other taxing jurisdictions whole without the payment of the property taxes owed by this owner, right? So city of Plattsburgh has to pay county and the city school district the taxes owed for this property.
Are you
Now,
allowed?
we don't get revenue from this property, so then that money has to come from somewhere.
The city guarantees the county school district tax rate for whatever they bill. So as far as taxing on any property in the city,
Mhm,
it's our job to make sure that it gets collected.
mhm,
And the only way to really collect it is foreclosure proceeding.
mhm.
So if you say you're removing this from the foreclosure proceeding, you've got no practical way to collect those taxes. So therefore, instead of sitting on and paying taxes based on a $65,000 assessment, which probably represents the value of a developed lot in the city of Plattsburgh, the size of this one on Pep Street,
Mhm.
excluded from the tax lien. So it excludes it from the tax roll. Therefore, no taxes will be billed against that property until the council decides to reinstate it as a taxable property. And therefore, the city doesn't guarantee rolls and continue to pay, and the taxes don't continue to accumulate that we can't collect.
Okay, I understand that. I would like to see us, I'm just gonna tell you my perspective, I would like to see us foreclose on the property, take ownership of it, tear it down, sell it.
This property has been offered to us for $1 for the past 6 years, 7 years. It's-
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
the
liability.
problem.
It's if want the taxpayer to pay for the demolition, that's always been.
I know we've talked about this in past years, but
Option where the taxpayer doesn't balance. Saying so it's standoff and we're, rather than us leave while we're doing that standoff, it makes sense to at least not pay money to the school and the county while it's occurring.
I understand. But the building will remain as it is, unfixed, dangerous.
The owner
Safety hazard.
has expressed intentions to keep trying. That's the latest.
But I'm just saying just as a matter of fact, if we go through with this, the building stands as it is, not fixed, still dangerous.
The building, regardless of whether we do this, that building is gonna stand as it is, unfixed.
Unless we foreclose on it.
Sure, but okay. Sure, and then the city takes ownership of this building, spends hundreds of $1,000s of tearing it down because it is hot in the sense of it's,
Dangerous.
yes,
Yeah.
it's asbestos and vermiculite or whatever's in there. And then we have a parcel that's worth $30,000 open lot that we sell and.
26,500.
Pardon?
26,500.
Are there alternative paths? I think so. There's new state programs that have come out this year. We talked about leveraging those state programs for this property specifically. I'm not of the mindset that the city should take responsibility for tearing this building down. I don't think that the city should be responsible for a private owner that hasn't stepped up to the plate, who has certainly, since this incident, has done multiple development projects and purchases and improvements to properties that they particularly own. But for this one, it's just kind of like, we're not going to take care of it.
There may be grants available for what's called light on the community properties,
Mhm.
where you can get funding to cover the costs of the demolition or rehabilitation. Those grants have always been an option for a while.
Has anybody asked Barton and LaJudas if they could pursue something like that for us, since we're paying them to do such things?
So
They probably could. It's certainly an aspect. I mean, another option is the revolving loan fund update that the council recently approved. Allows for funding to remove blighted properties within the community. So if the city is not eligible to use that money itself, but if there was a private owner who wanted to
Hi, Jamie.
ownership of property, if the city buys them a certain amount of money, that's an option.
I'm excusing myself. I gotta get going.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah,
Well, I gotta jump in here at some
Yes.
point.
I know, so, Jeff.
Probably
No,
more
Jeff,
about
do it.
this property than anyone.
You sure do. Yes, please.
You know, this has been going on from two administrations ago, it's been going on in the last administration, and here we are again. These poor people, I've gone there many times. They have things falling in their driveways, large window fell in there. At one point, they said, okay, we'll fix that, we'll wrap the building in tarps. The tarp shredded all over and it caused a blue blizzard on everybody's property. This is not gonna resolve, okay? It's gonna go on forever, man. These people deserve better than that. I mean, living next to a burned out building, if that was me, I would be in here complaining every meeting, every year until it got fixed. There's no one that's gonna come along and magically fix this place. The only way that we're gonna get this back on the tax rolls is to tear that damn building down, send the bill to the owner, and we'll get back what we get back. It's just too much of a
It's
blow.
not paying into
And this
anything
keeps
now.
going on over and over again.
Yep.
That is a disgrace.
There's zero, I agree. I 100% agree. There's zero amount of money that we will recoup from doing that.
Yes,
I agree
exactly.
that that might be the case, but at some point it needs to be dealt with, and we know that it's not gonna get dealt with by this person, and we do have city residents that are suffering and literally in danger as a result of it. So, and it's been years, like, we can't keep kicking it down the road. We have to just, if it means that we take a loss, we keep talking about what good financial shape we're in. Some of what we have to do is take care of properties like this. It's just part of what we have to do, I feel. So I can't support this because I think what we need to do is reclaim that property and tear it down.
At this point, it's still, okay, we don't have to do this, but we still owe the city, school district and the county money if we don't, and this building still stays up there.
I would like to see what can be done in terms of grant, or can we use the revolving loan fund? I would like to see more information about how we could foreclose on it, tear it down, find a grant, do something. But I cannot get behind this.
Yeah, if we foreclose on, it, then we'll be working.
Ideas here. You guys understand, so there is a track that you guys can make that policy decision on this parcel. This question is, should the city be paying the school district and the county reimburse them for taxes that we have collected? That's the sole question here. All that's not exclusive from everything that you described.
But does it also stop us from collecting taxes or and I know he's not paying the taxes, but does it also stop us from accruing that owed tax bill? It takes it off completely from all those things?
He doesn't cancel the prior tax obligation. The lien exists.
No, I know not the prior tax obligation.
$40,000 out there in unpaid taxes. Those are still there. They're the city's problem. If we don't foreclose, there's no other practical way to collect.
Mhm.
Although at one point in time, last administration, the last I heard about this, last part of the discussion, I was involved in the rental registry system was going to take care of this problem. Was why.
That was the
I don't know
hope.
if that's still.
That was the hope. That was the hope.
No, there's no mechanism in the rental registry law to take care of this at all.
Plan. Okay.
So
But
the,
anyway,
yeah.
this just cancels the tax lien. You as a legislative body are saying, we want to remove this property from the tax roll and then ask the city assessor and Bureau of Property Services directly with the county to make it an exempt property so taxes don't continue to accrue on it until something is done with it to remedy the situation. If something is done to remedy the situation, you can reinstate it to the tax roll right away, just by being a legislative decision once again.
So if we vote yes on this, can we then still move forward to foreclose, or is that a separate resolution? Steve?
Again, there's, the foreclosure process that we can go through, but that's completely unnecessary because the property owner has consistently said, here, take this property. You don't have to go through the foreclosure process. I will give it to you gladly. So that's unnecessary to go, yes, but that's unnecessary in this context because that's would be a just an academic exercise. It's water choice.
Well, wait a
It's
minute.
anyone.
Didn't you say that the foreclosure could give us a path to trying to get back that 40,000 that's owed on it? If we did foreclosure, do we have a path to trying to reclaim that money
The
legally?
path is to try and sell the property at auction to recoup the tax liens.
So whether we did the
As
$1
much as you
sale,
can of the tax.
okay, so.
And what legit, what
What Dean is
rational
saying
actor
makes
is gonna
sense.
buy a $200,000.
Oh, no, we clearly have to pay that on the property.
So doing this will make the taxes stop at 40,000. They won't go up any higher than that.
Prior tax.
Correct.
And this is 40,000 since 2013. That hasn't been paid.
2014,
2014.
the last tax bill that wasn't paid was 2014.
Okay, so the fire happened after, or after we had already paid the taxes.
So if we
I was
approve this, then our next task would be to find someone and some money to tear it down. That would be step number 2.
Yeah, and there are mechanisms. New York State relaunched a couple of programs specifically for blighted properties like this. And again, if we separate out the two concerns, the first concern here that's being addressed is that we are still paying, making the school district and the county whole for properties we're not getting money for. The second part of that is to address that property in a way that's, whether we spend taxpayer money doing it or not. I mean, I personally don't think that we should. There are other mechanisms that we can follow before we go down that route, but I share the frustration.
But if we foreclose, then does that eliminate our responsibility to the other taxing jurisdictions? In other words, if that property's foreclosed, do we still have to pay the taxes? In the future, I mean.
Oh, but there's no, if this property is taken off the tax roll right now, and get it approved before it's finalized for July 1st, we won't have a school tax bill for this particular property come July 1st. And going forward, no more tax liens for any jurisdictions, either the school district, the city, or the county. That's the 3 big covenants. And it won't be reinstated to the tax roll until you would decide legislatively to do something. Like you're deciding right now, legislatively to remove it or cancel the tax lien.
And if we decided to foreclose, we would continue to pay those school taxes and county taxes? Like if we foreclose on the property, would we still owe? school and county taxes?
Those taxes have already been paid.
No, I know, but I'm saying for July, I'm saying
If you guys gave us foreclosed ones.
coming this year, not for what's been paid, for what's coming.
Foreclosed ones, CDOs, alright.
Not necessarily. No, not really. I think if it's still on the tax roll and the city will foreclose on it, we still have school district taxes to pay for this year.
Okay, that was.
But like Dean is saying, there's no reason to foreclose on it anymore because the owner is saying, just take it, because we're doing him a favor by taking it. But the real issue is to cancel the tax lien so nothing additionally accumulates.
So the burned out building stays on the street. That's the big issue.
And it will until we can find a solution to tear it down. And I think that's philosophically, I think that's the argument that we're gonna have to deal with. Are we going to spend this amount of money that's in our own bank account and to tear it down for, on behalf of a private developer or private owner that apparently has the means? Or are we gonna, press on that developer some more to get that person to pay, and which obviously it's not working? Or the other path is leverage some of the state funds and the programs that we know are available to try to fix that problem. If I can implore the council, this is what I would say. Pass this so that we're not obligated to make these other tax and jurisdictions whole, okay? That's separate. Then figure out the path for tearing it down. If the current owner's not gonna do it, so that's off the table. We know that, and that's the reality of it, and that's unfortunate because it's shame on that person.
Well, one thing that some of our
How do we
counselors,
end up with an assessment on this property for anything? It's totally worthless. It would cost
Well,
you
the land-
more to tear it down.
You'll have to ask the city assessor why they said it's 65,000.
It should
My
be-
assumption is that's the value of the developed property.
It's the value of the
But not with
land.
that building on it. It's not worth anything.
I've asked about, zeroing it out. This is the only way to zero it out from what he's told me. Now, it's unfortunate the city has no mechanism to force a owner who's being obviously delinquent in their duties, negligent of taking care of what they're supposed to be. There's nothing in the laws to force them to do it. Maybe we could put laws in place to fix the next one that happens like this. But there's nothing we can do.
There is actually a mechanism that the city of Plattsburgh does not have in place for specifically for properties that are
Zombie.
that get, no, specifically for properties that get burnt up in fire, which we don't have on our books to protect ourselves, and that's something Dean and I talked about.
one thing that some of our counselors may not know is that property is owned by a limited liability corporation, which has as assets 0. So there is no way we will ever get money from them from a foreclosure proceeding. They will never pay to have that building torn down, no matter how much we, plead and wring our hands and beg them to act. They will not. And I believe that now after, what's it been?
Yes.
9 years
Yeah.
of
I think
this.
that's very clear, and I think,
That's exactly the reason that we shouldn't keep kicking the can down the road. We're gonna be here 20 years from now going, yeah, we aren't paying, nobody's paying any tax on it, and we got a burned out building in the middle of our street.
right, like I
At
would
some
argue.
point, we have to be the adults in the room and say, we're gonna fix this. Somebody has to fix it. No, we're never gonna get any money for it.
And my concern is when we, I think it's great, let's look at Barton and Judas and what they can do for us, but my concern is that when we say we're gonna look for other mechanisms to pay for it, other than using the taxpayer money, then it just kind of keeps getting brushed aside and pushed off. We're searching and we don't get an answer, and then it's been another year, and then it's been another year. And at some point, we just have to say, this has to go, it has to happen this year, we're gonna do it. So, let's start putting out those inquiries, but if we don't come to a solution in a timely manner, I think we need to come back to it and move forward.
Okay, two different issues. Do we approve this? Well, there are, right? Two different issues. Do we approve this or not?
Well,
Yeah,
and
if
foreclosures,
actually doesn't mean the city's taking title to the property.
No, I
It's
understand
canceling
that.
the tax
Yeah.
payment.
Yeah, I
You
know.
would be.
foreclosure is an exercise in futility from what I can see. If we really want to do this, the first step is to pass this resolution.
Well, you could do
Buy
that.
the property
without
for a
canceling the
dollar.
tax lien, and that means by foreclosing them, that you're asking to take title to the property. So that you can turn around and try to sell it at auction.
I think that's established. The question is, and I'm gonna do a call to question here in a moment. The question on the table is, do we take this property off the tax roll? And this was a recommendation by the tax assessor, by the way, as well. So because of the tax obligation that we have to make those other jurisdictions whole. That's one thing. I 100% agree. Okay. Not gonna stand on my philosophical principles and say, no, we shouldn't be spending taxpayer money on a bad landlord. I more agree that the building needs to go. And having the dialogue and debate about how that happens, I agree. it has to go, one way or the other.
I
Don't like
wonder,
using taxpayer money to do it. I'd rather spend that $300,000 on our parks, bike lanes, something else. A playground at
Fun?
South, yes, a fun playground at South Acres or South Platte Street. I'd much rather spend that $300,000 doing that. Don't think this is fair, which is why part of that philosophical debate inside of me is happening. But it does need to happen. I agree, Jeff.
I wonder if it might be possible to sort of do what Caitlin is suggesting, and that is to go ahead and tear that property down, incur the cost for it, and try to get grant funds to cover it after we do this.
Yeah, the unfortunate part, it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Right,
we
well,
gotta get the grant, but I think it's fair. Caitlin said it. Jeff said it. Put a timeline on it, okay? 2022 is the year. One way or the other, it's happening, okay? It just has to be, we put the timeline on it and we figure out a path on how to do that, one way or the
And
other.
to your point, Chris, I agree that it's not fair. We shouldn't have to take on this burden, but it's not our fault that we're having to possibly take on the burden. It's the fault of this landlord. And unfortunately, needs do have to be met before wants. And the safety issue makes this a need.
Yeah.
And also, we want our downtown to not look like
Yes, I agree.
trash. So we've got to, we might have to do something.
So,
So let's, Counselor, because I'd like to call this a question.
yeah, I was gonna make a suggestion.
Okay, please.
Would it be the will of the council to postpone this until the next finance meeting? Would that give enough time for us?
No, the tax roll is being finalized for July 1st.
Oh, that's right.
I can find out from the city assessor, if we wait until June, if you'll still have enough time to
Right.
get us the exemption.
No,
So
I think it's confirmed at the beginning of June, which is why grievance day is at the end of May. I think the tax roll is confirmed June.
I'll find out. I'll see how long.
It's, but again, that's not gonna change, it's not gonna change the fact that we're gonna end up owing taxes on this property.
So it's only in committee right now. We're gonna have to vote for it for real next week if we decide to move it out of
Yep.
committee. Is there any way we can get some answers from Barton and LaJudas about grant opportunities?
There,
or
I'm
grant-
letting you know that there are grant opportunities out there, even with the Restore New York program that's included in the governor's budget that addresses these issues specifically. The question, but there's just no guarantee that the city can obtain that grant or other grants similar to that. Not to say, and that's why I go back to the timeline, not to say that we don't double down, we find this money, we get out there, in fact, I just had an email exchange with Mark Hamilton and Matt about those types of programs for this property. But again, I just think we need a timeline on it. I agree. We know that there's programs out there that address this issue, and through that grant cycle, which ends at the end of July, we'll know by the end of August what monies are available or come to the city for something like this. And if there aren't, if we don't get those grants in, all right, sign the check in the general fund and tear it down.
I think it's great if we prioritize this with Barton and LaJudas, just because obviously we have other properties that also are an issue. So the more information we can have about how to tackle these things, the better.
All right, call the question. We had a motion and a second, roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes, but only because it's a draft.
Talon,
Yes.
The talent.
Counselor Box,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes,
Carry.
Mayor, I'm very sorry, but I
You get it out?
I
All right.
have to go.
Yeah, hold on, let me just see what's left.
So I'm really sorry, but I have a lot of questions on item 5.1. And I have to go. So I'm gonna have to ask them next week at the council meeting.
I'll be here next.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, 5.1, authorizing draft resolution authorizing revised capital project H 5110.82-2021 street resurfacing 3 motion. Counselor Bob, second.
I'll second.
Oh, great, thanks, Counselor Kelly. Discussion. Papers are all over.
I'm gonna head into this.
Well, it looks like we're adding $68,000 to the to the Margaret Street project.
You're actually 51,000.
Yeah, 851,000.
And that is for the purpose of beginning the construction design phase of this.
Yeah, so I guess the easiest thing to do would be kind of the lump 5.1 and 5.2 in for discussion.
Yep.
If the mayor's okay with that.
Yep.
So basically, after the last meeting where the council approved the concept study by CNS, the next process is to select a design engineer to start the design process. To do that, we're going through the LDSA manual, which is the Local Design Service Agreement Manual that's approved by DOT. The reason why we're going through this process is because if state or federal funding becomes available, this is a process that you have to follow in order to apply for those funds. So basically what that means is there are pre-approved engineers on this list that you can arbitrarily select from. We have 5 on our list. We could pick any one of those 5 that we want because they're already pre-approved and evaluated. Instead of doing that, what I did was I actually went a step further to the procurement process, sent out letters to all 5 of them, asked them to submit a proposal to us, a proposal of interest, basically listing their qualifications, and then we rate them. Based on that ranking, we choose who we think is most qualified to do the job. Out of the 5, we only had 2 that applied. Could be they have more work or just weren't interested in the project. CNS Engineers and Urban Anthony. Based on the ranking of those 2, the people who evaluated it chose CNS as the top candidate for the project. We then worked with CNS to get a cost estimate from them for the design, which is the $850,500. Big number. The thing to think about with this is a Cogan Avenue project was close to about $200,000 to design. You're looking at Margaret Street, Oak Street, and Brinkerhoff Street, 3 very large streets in the city.
Court, he meant to say.
I'm sorry, Court. They are within $20,000 of what my estimates were. Typically, a project like this, you're looking at 8 to 10% of construction costs is what the design cost is. They actually come out at about 6.8 to 7%. So they're actually a little bit on the low side. So we put together the draft resolution to amend the capital project to add the cost in. This is a 100% reimbursable item through touring roots funding. So once the design is done, the Rich would cut a check to CNS to pay them for the design, and then we would submit that to DOT for reimbursement.
So it's anticipated that the touring rooms will cover.
It's already guaranteed. We already have that money in the bank. It's a reimbursement because I say the bank, not our bank, their bank.
It's in the bank with the state.
It's in somebody's bank, but it's allocated to us, okay? But yeah, that's essentially what happens. Again, that's the same question that we had for the last capital project we created for the parks, is we already have we already have that money. It's just, this is a very clear outline of where that money's coming from.
And this includes the underground work as well as the surface.
This is everything. This is utilities or water, sewer, storm. This is your bike paths, your curbing. This is the whole shebang.
The widened street on
The
Margaret
street, yeah, we will design it so we can turn it back to 2 lanes if need be.
Thanks for your sense of humor.
Yes, so this is, they will go through, they will start, basically it'll start with having a surveying firm come out, start doing a survey base map they will provide to CNS, and then based off of that base map, CNS will do their design.
And so we're right on track time-wise.
Yes, if this gets approved as is, we are on track. Please keep in mind, this is a very aggressive schedule. So we got to keep following on this one to keep that schedule.
Any further questions? Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Talon,
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Carried. Draft resolution titled Award of Preliminary and Final Design Phase for the Margaret Street Reconstruction Project. Motion. Counselor Bob, second by Counselor Kelly. All that discussion was in there. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Talon,
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Carried. Public comment. Hello, sir. How are you? Thanks for waiting, the 2 hours. Really appreciate it, man. Sorry about that.
That's it. It's not the most amount of time I've spent in this room, I will assure you that. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Again, I'll be as brief as I can. My name is Steve Peters. I'm the owner of a company called Elevate 518. DBA Adirondack Coast Sports. I've given you a lovely little handout there, which is kind of my annual recap that I send out to all of our participants. Gives you some data. There's definitely some random musings in there that may not relate to what you're concerned about. But there's also some things in there that deal with the facility as well, and some of the good things, some of the bad things and such that we've dealt with. Just in terms of actual quantity of people, I think we hit a high point this year of over 1,700 different youth and adults participating in our programs, which is really good. Over 1,200 games, looking at 4,400 people in the building every week. So over the last couple of years, we've got a pretty solid data set of group of people. 87.5% come from Clinton County. And then I was able to implement a couple events this year, including the 2-day fall craft show, which was a pretty resounding success, considering that our micro small businesses, these vendors, these crafters hadn't had an opportunity to do anything. So that was a really good thing. And then we're able to pull one together for this spring as well. What I did want to do is extend my most heartfelt and deepest appreciation for the mayor, Matt Miller, the Department of Public Works, and Mike Cassette, and then MLD for being there. There was a lot of problems that I had with the building that I was able to address on my own, anything from plumbing to I installed a hot water heating system to ADA faucets. I've had every toilet apart at some point on the floor spread out in front of me, and I put it back together. I've been elbow deep in sewage. Been there at 11:30 at night cleaning water out of the building. And I think that the common theme for us was water this year, which was not only did we have leaks coming from the ceiling, but we also had leaks coming in when it wasn't raining inside. We had water coming up from the floor with different water main breaks of any capacity. So when there were issues that I couldn't solve, I was forced, unfortunately, I'm sure, to call either Matt or Mike Cassette, and I'm sure that they were swearing when they see my name come up on the phone. But in those scenarios, Public Works was there right away as soon as they could. Every single guy that came in the building was efficient, was courteous, was helpful, was knowledgeable, represented the city very, very well, and I'm grateful for their attention. I mean, they know, I think, what I do, which is, either they participated in programs in that building or their kids participated in those programs in that building. And so they know how important it is for their city families or the region in general. And so I appreciate their diligence all throughout. Matt was able to arrange some roofing contractors as soon as the weather allowed to be able to patch these massive open seams that were on the roof. And really, we're down to a couple little drips, and the change has been substantial. So that was really well done, and I appreciate that. I do want to give you a quick update as to where I'm going with this program or what I'd like to do. Our contract last year was a one-off kind of contract with the previous administration. And then we re-signed a contract with the mayor for this next 3 years. And I have 6 months out of the year for the building from November 1 to May 1. And it's become, something of a necessity, obviously, to find a place, find a home for all of these participants, all of these players, again, how it's impactful for the region. So I'm investing my money. I've been fortunate enough to work with the Clinton County Industrial Development Agency and received a grant that's going to cover about half of a $50,000 project that does this kind of comprehensive market study. And I think I explained it in this document, but I'll do it really quickly here, in that when I worked for the city for the decade or so that I was here, we would always do kind of the same thing in a way, which is like we want to talk about replacing the Create Center, come up with solutions. And so you get all the stakeholders in the room. You got to kind of appease everybody. And that's a very common thing municipally. So some lady wants a pool, some guy wants a gym, somebody else wants an ice rink. And then by the time you're done, you've got like a $70 million building and you don't get a second meeting. And we do this over and over and over again in different ways. And so one of the things after I departed the city, I easily recognized that really we've got to take care of and talk about this group of kids and group of adults that participated. So my goal with this study, which I've already hired the consultants to do it, this national level group is going to determine more or less what our market can sustain, what our current programming can sustain. And if we can create an independent facility, if we can create a sustainable structure, if you will, then we'll look at what the operational structure actually will be. Is it for-profit, is it nonprofit? How are we going to make this work? So I'm really excited to get the answers and to have this group evaluate all the things that we're doing. So all of that said, my goal ultimately is to try to evolve this away from the burden of the city taxpayer in some way, away from the building that causes us certainly a lot of struggle, but also provides a tremendous value to the region as it sits. I can assure you that it is 100% too small for what our region currently is looking for, because we only have one field. I am shutting out quality programs like lacrosse and baseball and softball. I desperately want to do a girls flag football program. And we can't because I don't have the space, I don't have the time. And by the way, girls flag football is now a varsity sport through New York State Public High School Athletic Association in the sections that are close to Buffalo Bills and New York Jets, New York Giants, and it will eventually grow to the rest of the state. So just because I think it's really cool and it's something that's really special for girls age 11, 12, 13, 14 right now to help develop confidence, to develop all sorts of skill sets that might come from that type of sport. I really want to push that, but at the moment we can't. So, I mean, at that, again, I just want to extend my appreciation for this year. It was, you know, I wouldn't say it was seamless because there's a lot of work, but in the end, we're going to do whatever it takes to try to keep the lights on and building open for these kids as much as I can affect that. So I'm available for questions before or after. You have my email on here if you have any.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Any new business coming? We did have an executive session planned for tonight. We're going to forego that executive session for a number of reasons. Is there any new business come for council? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Brown, second by Councilor Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
7:07. We are now adjourned. Thanks, folks.